Okay, we're going to cross live now to the Élysée Palace where the French President Emmanuel Macron is speaking live on the occasion of a summit with the G5 countries in the Sahel region, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, Niger and France. Let's take a listen to Emmanuel Macron.
1 year after Pau and the summit that we held early in 2020, which was a moment of clarification. At Pau, we were able to obtain clarification from the requests of our Sahel partners to maintain our military presence and their resolve to assume their share in the fight against terrorist groups. At Pau, we also obtained clarification, or rather a reminder of the enemy we were fighting against. It was one of the important items of that meeting. France is not, as some may have said or sought to manipulate the information involved in ethnic or community wars. Our presence was solicited by states. It comes in support of the sovereignty of those states, and we're fighting against a common enemy that has already struck us on our soil, whose agenda is international and has made Sahel its main area of operations, threatening the stability of West Africa. The enemy is, of course, Islamist terrorism, and we have very clearly identified the target of EIGS, which is our number one enemy against which we have focused during the period. The agenda of the unit that is affiliated to Al-Qaeda, it's not just Kidal, Bamako, tomorrow, Abidjan, Dakar, and continue to prosper. Let me recall that the prime victims of this terrorism are the civilian populations of Sahel states. And then the Sahel military and our own military personnel. At Pau, we very clearly set out our operational priorities that stem from this definition of the enemy. Faced with the urgent situation, our military effort was concentrated in a specific area, shown here on the map, that shows the hold and presence of Barkhane and Ceiba. Our military effort was concentrated in the three borders area against a specific enemy. EIGS, this allowed us to secure results. I'll return to that in a moment, but has not prevented us from continuing to fight against various factions of the RV. Ansade in the north, Masiba in the center of Mali, subsidiary enemies with fully fledged military victories. The neutralization of the leader of the RVIM last June. And also, we can return to that, but the neutralization of Moussa last November, all these military groups suffered considerable pressure, and some of their leaders were killed during recent operations. This military effort defined at Pau has led to victories. We're able to secure results and saved Sahel for the second time. The situation of December 2019, let me recall, is Mali, Niger, Burkina triangle on the edge of collapse. Armies heavily impacted after a visit that I paid to Niger a few days before Christmas. We lost 80 men after the severe strike in November. Armies that were deeply demoralized, and alarmist noises about the political situation. We were able to reverse the military balance of power and to boost morale of the armies in the region and revive the operational dynamics. The success of the strategy set out at Pau is one of partnership. We've deepened our cooperation with the Sahel Army through joint command at Niamey, reviving large-scale operations such as Bourrasque and Eclipse. Our European partners also assume their share through the ramp-up of the Takuba force. I'll return to that, and at our side with the Sahelians in combat operations, not just in training missions. And the success of the Pau meeting is not just military, it's also a democratic success. Two Sahel states have led or are currently leading an electoral process that is peaceful. That was not really on the cards a year ago. Burkina has completed its elections. I congratulated President Kaoré for his re-election. And Niger is completing with the first round that was held calmly in a second round of elections in April, so that country, and it's important to stress this, to experience its first peaceful democratic transition since independence. It's a collective political victory. The Mali coup last year penalizes the implementation of the Pau roadmap, but the transition opens up a clear window of opportunity. The coup of August last year interrupted the roadmap. It was preceded by a lengthy political crisis, led to a period of inertia and uncertainty with regional, national negotiation through the transitional government. The transitional authorities in Mali are aligned on the three fundamentals that we expect them to implement, and during the visit to Paris, President Andao, we discussed that. ECOWAS roadmap for holding elections in 18 months, the Pau roadmap in the fight against terrorism. All commitments taken for these initiatives were delivered by the Transitional Authority, and reviving the Alger talks, follow-up meeting at Kidal on the 11th of February, commitment made by the transition president to me was rigorously held, testifies to the renewed commitment of authorities in the Kidal region. Within the space of a few months, these transition authorities have given more assurances than the previous leadership in 3 years. This realignment with the Malian authorities, fully noticed during the visit of President Ndao to Paris, combined with a post-electoral situation in Burkina and Niger, opens a window of opportunity for military, civilian, political breakthroughs. It's against that backdrop that I wanted to say that we've just held this N'Djamena summit, which is a moment to amplify the momentum initiated at Pau. Firstly, the military dynamic gaining strength in the weeks in the run-up to the N'Djamena summit yesterday afternoon, we're able to see a consolidation of the military strategy defined a year ago. First of all, a consolidation of the achievements obtained in the Three Borders region. The Chadian battalion left Chad last week, will be positioned in the region in the coming days to consolidate the hold over terrorist groups in the region. We saw the images. We're clarifying with the Burkina president the position of the Chadian battalion, but it will supplement the Barkhane capability and the G5 forces in the region where we're focusing our efforts, and that's since last year, with in particular in the north, east of Burkina, shown here on the map, a very sensitive area around Marcoy, structured around which the Chadian battalion will provide support. Then a convergence on the leadership of our VIM. In practical terms, these past weeks, we've consolidated convergence with our partners in G5 to consider that Amadou Koufa and Kigali are enemies and in no way negotiating partners. They're terrorist leaders who have the deaths of several thousand civilians on their hands, and our military personnel, Sahelian, European, international. The aim isn't to produce a northern Malian effort symmetrical to that achieved in the Three Borders region. The characteristics of the two groups are very different, but to continue and to complete the disruption of a very weakened chain of command through the killing of Doudal and Moussa that I mentioned in June and November last year. We also saw the ramping up of military pressure on the Massimal unit, with extending capability in the western sector through discussions between the Malian and Mauritanian military staffs within the G5 capability. This priority, fight against terrorist groups, continued action, is the number one priority. The military front, supplemented with consolidation of the G5 force that has come a long way in 12 months. And our resolve is now to consolidate this joint G5 Sahel force through sustainable finance. The EU delivered on the financial commitments for the equipment. The UMOA has also taken the first commitment. We must continue to fund this joint force, whose annual operating costs were identified at 40 million euros and obtained from our international partners, the Gulf states of the region, Europe and the US. And our resolve is also to obtain a UN mandate under Chapter 7 in the coming months for this joint force G5 Sahel to allow for sustainable funding. In addition to this growing military momentum in N'Djamena, and that's the second point that I wish to underscore here, the triggering of a civilian process to supplement the military process. The military pillar has produced results at the expected pace. In spite of COVID, the resources for a push along development are there. The Sahel Alliance, set up in July 2017, brought together 900 projects and 16 billion euros. We also rallied international funding on the Great Green Wall, here with the Mauritanian president. But there's a missing link, which is the minimal echelon of state presence in the most vulnerable areas. It's that failing that N'Djamena must correct. This requires deep re-engagement by Mali, Burkina and Niger to deploy for civilian action a capability similar to that put in place for military action, joint ministerial capability led by chiefs of states on a weekly basis, very close coordination to identify all the projects, ensure good governance, and to allow for a return of states and development projects once military success achieved. We identified 4 pillars at PO: fight against terrorism, second pillar, strengthening Sahel military capabilities with the G5 Sahel force, return of the state, and fourthly, development. It's around pillars 3 and 4 that we must now have the same political strength, because as soon as we liberate an area, state capabilities must return. It concerns the full region, but short-term we've identified clear objectives with the deployment of security forces, judges, reopening of schools, and measurable cases and objectives set. Kidal, we know the return of the state has been expected for several years, and so it's a return of all Malian government services. And then we have a challenge on the Mopti-Gao axis, well known, shown here on the map, where there again it's a return of government in all its forms that must be built. And then Ouagadougou, Kayadori, where it's a return of government to ensure security, government and schooling. And I'd say the Terra, Douelza, Gao, Menaka rectangle, which is at the heart of the three borders area, Burkina, Mali, Niger, is where we must concentrate our efforts. If we want to obtain the backing of civilian populations over time, once we've defeated the jihadists, we must ensure a return of security, to exercise justice, to avoid all acts of impunity, and to reopen schools in the northeast of Burkina. We have several thousand classes that remain shut. It's on that component that we've decided to go all out and make progress with weekly updates led by the special envoy that I've appointed in support of these initiatives in the G5 Sahel. Lastly, third and final comment is amplifying the collective momentum secured at N'Djamena will mark the advent of an international coalition in Sahel to fight terrorism. We're continuing that with major breakthroughs on the military front, participation of an unprecedented number of partners, the states that contribute to the Takuba task force. It's our resolve on the basis of what we have with the Sabre task force, an intervention force where France will have a key role with several hundred combatants, but to aggregate around us, Europeans, international, we propose to states, in particular the coastal states, to join the force. Launched on the 27th of March last year, it has 9 partners: France, Sweden, Czech Republic, Estonia, Italy, Denmark, Portugal, Belgium, Netherlands, and is prompting the interest of a growing number of countries from Eastern and Southern Europe in particular. A few weeks ago, I secured the confirmation of the Serbian president of his intention to join it, as well as other countries, Hungary and Greece, that are volunteering to join this task force. Next, during the N'Djamena summit, we had a first signal of re-engagement of the new U.S. administration with a video message from Secretary of State Blinken. We also had confirmation of an Algerian and Moroccan engagement. I welcome that. It's important for the stability of the region. We appointed a high representative of the coalition, be a Sahelian face, to guarantee the good progress of the pillars at the same pace to secure commitments for Sahel. The operational priority of the coming months is to allow ourselves to achieve irreversible breakthroughs. Significant developments will be brought to our capability over time, but won't occur immediately because they're the fruit of a collective discussion with our Sahel partners and partners who've agreed to support us, and will depend on the results obtained and the actual degree of commitment of our partners. It would be paradoxical to weaken our capability at a time when we have favorable political military alignment to the achievement of our goals. That's why specific milestones have been set. There'll be weekly updates on the implementation of our commitments. A further meeting of heads of state will be held in the spring to review progress across these pillars, and a coalition summit will be held before the summer to review progress and funding. Wanted to detail and set out the achievements after Pau. I'll now take your questions.